What's going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are here to talk about WWE Elimination Chamber 2026 live from the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. A very unenthusiastic Chicago crowd for this show, but that has been the state of affairs with most of the WWE crowds over the last several weeks, with these very dull, uninteresting, lifeless, boring television shows that WWE has been putting out there, all building up to this event, which, you know, with two chamber matches and two big marquee matches in the middle, with two people billed from being from Chicago, or at least currently in Chicago, you would think that they'd be a little more interested in this show, and you would think that this show would be a little more interesting overall, but from top to bottom, it really wasn't. Not to say there wasn't good things on it, but nothing stand out in terms of some of the matches. You had some good ones, but not a whole lot of great ones, especially the main event. I will say up front that the closing sequence of events that took place in the main event, I thought made for a very exciting stretch of time. The fans were really super into the last 5 or so minutes of that match, and that made things a little more exciting. But everything leading up to that point, from the moment the bell rang up to that point, it really was not all that great. The crowd was pretty much asleep for majority of it, and the things that the guys were doing in there, hey, they were working hard. It's very difficult to have a bad Elimination Chamber match, and while I wouldn't call it a bad Elimination Chamber match, it sure as hell wasn't a good one. But it was a chamber match to determine the new number one contender for Drew McIntyre's WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes, Javon Evans, Trick Williams, Logan Paul, Randy Orton, and LA Knight, all vying for that spot. And in the end, it was Randy Orton who emerged victorious in this match. And he is the one who was going to face Drew for that championship at WrestleMania, at least as of this moment. We'll get into that more because we have to break down what led up to that just a little bit. Again, not much to say about the match itself. It really wasn't that good. You know, no disrespect to the guys in there. They were doing their best. Javon Evans was pulling off some amazing feats. Trick Williams, he's been super over ever since he first debuted, and there was no exception here. He made his entrance. He was aura farming. He was great. You know, people like LA Knight, but the match itself just wasn't all that interesting. And the way they booked this match, with Logan Paul looking like the unstoppable killing machine, really didn't do this match any favors. Now, obviously, this spot, I'm sure, was designed for Bronson Reed, who was originally supposed to be in this match, as he was the one who was slated to win his qualifying match this past Monday night on Raw. Unfortunately, he suffered a bicep tear during that match, and they called an audible. Jey Uso was the one who won that match. Then days later on SmackDown, they ran an angle where Jey Uso got attacked by a mystery man. Stop me if you've heard that before. And they had a qualifying match at the end of the night, and Logan Paul won and made his way into the chamber match. So they just substituted one Vision member for another. And, you know, had it been Bronson Reed in here, the big, bulky Bronson Reed, he's the one mowing down guys and eliminating them left and right, 2 or 3 guys in a row, that would have made sense and probably would have come off a little bit better. With Logan Paul, I don't know. It just, the vibes of between what the guys were doing and the match itself and the crowd, there wasn't a whole lot of meshing going on, and seeing Logan Paul constantly pinning all these people really didn't help matters very much. But it was designed to make Logan Paul look strong, so what came afterward would hit hard. Now, of course, this past week on SmackDown, they did the whole masked man reveal, and it was some random guy. I was almost hoping that would just be the blow off there, and they wouldn't even continue with this angle, and they would just kill it there and just kill off this whole Vision stuff, because clearly it is cursed with what happened to Seth, what happened to Braun Breaker, what happened to Bronson Reed. The group is cursed. There's no need to continue on with it, but WWE is steadfast with continuing with this group and continuing with whatever this storyline is. Hence why on this show we had another appearance from a masked man. After Trick Williams was eliminated in this match, he was being helped out by some of the referees when another masked man hopped the barricade, tried to climb into the cage. I don't know where he was climbing because there's no real opening on the top of the chamber, but whatever. But he was stopped by security. They pulled him away. He was unmasked, and it was yet and again another random dude. And so they took him away. Meanwhile, the door is still open, and in comes another masked man. This is like the third one in the span of 24 hours, but another one comes in. He looks right at Logan Paul, kicks him in the gut, hits him with a stomp. Cody crawls over, pins him, and Logan Paul is gone. And then the man lifts off the mask, and it's revealed to be Seth Rollins. And this probably would have been far more impactful if it was Bronson Reed. But even before Bronson Reed, I'm almost positive this spot was supposed to go to Braun Breaker. Of course, Braun Breaker had the hernia injury coming out of even heading into the Rumble, he had it for a long time. He exasperated it after the Rumble, which led to him getting immediate emergency surgery. But I imagine weeks and weeks ago that had he been healthy and ready to go, he would have been the one in this chamber match. He would have been the one in this spot killing dudes, and he would have been the one to get screwed over by Seth Rollins, because that's what happened to him at the Royal Rumble. Braun Breaker came out at number 2. He only lasted in the match for a couple of seconds because a masked man hit him with a stomp and caused him to get eliminated. That was where this whole thing started out. So I imagine the payoff would have been here. Braun Breaker looking up at Seth Rollins, the man who he speared and excommunicated from the Vision. Now Seth is back on TV. Braun's gone. Reed is gone. All that's left is Logan Paul and Austin Theory. I gotta be honest, I don't really care much for the Vision. I didn't care for it all that much before. I care even less for it now. And good for Seth. He's back. I'm not sure what this match is going to turn out to be. I don't know if they're going to run back another Seth Rollins-Logan Paul singles match at WrestleMania. I don't know if they're going to turn this into a tag match where Seth has to reluctantly team up with someone like LA Knight, for example. I'm not sure where this is heading, but Seth is back. You know, hey, he's the one who is healthy enough to make it to WrestleMania, even if the other two Brons, who this all started out with, are not. But that was the big thing there. But with all that happening, it led to the chamber match coming down to Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. And before anything substantial could happen between the two of them, again, the door was open. So that brought out Drew McIntyre, who came into the ring. He clocked Cody with the championship belt, started to attack him. Randy laid out Drew with an RKO and then offered Drew up to Cody to hit him with a crossroads, which he did. And then as soon as Cody turned around, he ate an RKO from Randy Orton, and Randy got the 1, 2, 3, and he is the winner of this chamber match. So like I said, everything from Seth walking out, and I mean, once the chaos with the masked man and all that, whatever your thoughts are about that, just strictly going by crowd reaction, that's the most alive the crowd was for damn near anything in this match, and quite frankly, almost anything on this entire show, if we're being completely honest. But once all that stuff started, and then Seth unmasked himself and revealed himself, and then Drew came out, and then he gets laid out, and then Randy hits Cody. And I think the shock of it, because I don't think a lot of people expected Randy Orton to be the one to win this match. I think all conventional wisdom was that Cody was going to be the winner here, but Randy pulls off the win. And as of right now, the WrestleMania match is Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. I just don't believe at all that that is ultimately going to be the final match at WrestleMania. I firmly believe we are looking at a multi-man match, because look at the current landscape of what's been going on SmackDown recently. Drew McIntyre has been a complete menace to people on this roster, whether it's Randy, whether it's Cody, or even Jacob Fatu, who wasn't even on this show. But the reason is Jacob had at least 2 opportunities to make it into the chamber match, and he got screwed over both times by Drew McIntyre. Cody constantly getting screwed over by Drew. His elimination at the Rumble was caused by Drew McIntyre. He was almost screwed out of the chamber spot initially by Drew McIntyre, and even here in this match, he was screwed over by Drew. So both Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu have excuses for why they deserve to get a shot at Drew McIntyre and that championship. And plus, with how unruly and all over the place Drew McIntyre has been, I can very easily see a scenario play out with General Manager Nick Aldis putting Drew McIntyre in a position where ultimately the final match at WrestleMania, the Night 1 main event, will be Drew McIntyre defending his championship in a fatal 4-way match against Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, and Jacob Fatu. Now, not only does this screw over Drew, this also screws over Randy Orton, who won fair and square. It's a cage match. It's no disqualification. He took advantage of an opportunity over Cody, something that Cody took advantage of an opportunity over him many, many months ago when he won the King of the Ring. He took advantage of an opportunity and won. Randy did the same thing here. He won fair and square. It's not fair to Randy to be put in a fatal 4-way match when he won this match to guarantee him the shot at Drew. I would argue that it didn't guarantee him a singles match necessarily, but that's sort of implied. But with all this chaos right now, definitely think it's going to lead to a 4-way. And if it pisses off Randy Orton enough, could we see heading into that match or coming out of that match at WrestleMania, maybe a Randy Orton heel turn? Is it finally time to pull the trigger and turn Randy heel and do a proper Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes feud with Cody as the babyface and Randy as the heel? Maybe even Randy turning heel at WrestleMania. Maybe he RKO's Cody in a way that it's not just, oh, well, he just took advantage of the opportunity and won the match. It's like, no, he is going to the dark side here. Could that be a possibility? I welcome it. I welcome something new and fresh and exciting. That's why I wanted to see Drew win the championship, because it was something different. Now here, I'm not, we gotta be honest, I'm not overly interested in seeing Cody Rhodes just win back the championship at WrestleMania. If it turns out to be a 4-way, any of those 4 guys do have a legit shot of winning that championship, but out of the 4, Cody is the last person who I want to see walk out of WrestleMania with that championship. They have the opportunity to make this whole thing fun and how we set this thing up heading into Mania. They have 7 weeks between now and then to set things up and make it some fun television, because God knows with 3 hours of SmackDown, they need to make that show more interesting. So that's that. We also had a women's chamber match on this show with Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez, Asuka, Tiffany Stratton, Kiana James, and Alexa Bliss. And this match, between the 2 chamber matches on this show, this one easily was better. It was far more entertaining for me to watch than the women's Royal Rumble match last month, but it could not hold a candle to the women's chamber match that we had last year in Toronto. That's the one where Jade made her return. She attacked Naomi. Bianca won it. It It came down to her and Liv, and they had a great exchange. Liv was the MVP of that match. That was a great match, and probably the best women's Elimination Chamber match we've gotten up to this point. And after this year, it still is, because this one this year could not compare to that one. But isolated in a bubble on this show, and when compared to the one that the men did, it was far and away better. The crowd still wasn't fully into this, and this was the opening match, and they still weren't really overly excited for it, but they came alive during certain parts, mainly anything having to do with Rhea, and probably also Alexa and Tiffany a little bit, but nothing really to ride home about other than the fact that Rhea Ripley is the one to get the win. She and Io lost their tag team titles to Nia Jax and Lash Legend, the Irresistible Forces, the previous night on SmackDown, and that pretty much opened the floodgate for this to be a Rhea Ripley win on this show, and she got the win. It came down to her and Tiffany Stratton, and as Tiffany was going for her prettiest moonsault ever, Rhea shoved her off the turnbuckle into one of the chamber pods, and then lifted her up, hit the riptide, and got the win. So Rhea Ripley is heading to WrestleMania to face Jade Cargill. And I'm sure this is going to divide a lot of people. Obviously, the live crowd loved it. They love Rhea. All these live crowds do. Online-wise, which is kind of our wheelhouse here, a lot of divided opinion. Some people not a huge fan of Rhea Ripley once again getting a championship match at WrestleMania. Michael Cole said something like, what is it? This is her 5th time competing for a world championship at WrestleMania, which honestly sounds kind of low, but I guess she really has not been around that long, but it still somehow sounds a little bit lower than I anticipated. But let's face the facts. Rhea Ripley is still the biggest star in the women's division right now. There are other stars in the division. She is far and away the biggest. Maybe Io gives her a run for her money, but Rhea is still very high up there. Her star has been diminished slightly with the whole tag team thing that her and Io have been doing over the past couple of months, but you can easily slot her back in the main event position, and she's still super over. She has not competed for the World Championship in many, many months, probably since, SummerSlam last year, so it's been a while, and this is a fresh opponent for her with Jade Cargill, and let's be honest, Jade, not a whole lot of great options for her on SmackDown. Again, much like, the speculation of what the original plans were for the chamber match and how that was supposed to set up something with Bronson Reed, and maybe even before that, something with Braun Breaker. Sure, I can say something similar with the women. I'm sure the original plan in mind that they were building to in their heads was Jade Cargill versus a healthy Bianca Belair at WrestleMania in Vegas this year. But Bianca and this stuff with her finger and her knuckle and all that has just completely derailed everything. The next biggest match they could have done with just SmackDown exclusive talent was something with Jade and Charlotte Flair. They've teased it in the past. Those are two big stars on the show. Charlotte Flair is revered in this company. It would have made sense to go in that direction. But they wanted to pull a shocker, and they had Kiana James qualify for the chamber over Charlotte. And clearly they're telling a different story with Charlotte Flair. And maybe they didn't want to put Charlotte in yet another world championship match 2 years in a row. Because for all the complaining about Rhea Ripley being constantly in world title matches in the world championship scene, those complaints are far and away exceeded by the ones about Charlotte Flair, who has easily taken a huge backseat to the main event scene over the last year. And it looks like that's going to continue. I imagine her role at WrestleMania is her and Alexa involved in whatever the tag team title match is going to be. So, no Bianca. You don't go with the Charlotte match. What's the next biggest thing you can do? It's Rhea Ripley. And much like how CM Punk versus Roman Reigns on Raw is the biggest men's singles match you can do for WrestleMania this year, with the cards dealt to them, the biggest singles match they can do with the women It's not Stephanie versus Liv Morgan. It's Rhea Ripley versus Jade Cargill. So you don't really got to like it, but that's, in their eyes, that's the biggest attraction they can do for a women's singles match at WrestleMania this year. Even more so than something like Becky Lynch and AJ Lee, who already had a match on this show. So if they have a match at WrestleMania, it'll be a rematch, which will make it less interesting. Jade and Rhea, they match up height-wise. They're two very powerful individuals. It's a fresh match. It's a big marquee match that WWE can really build up. So there you go. Now, how will they develop a story? I don't have any hopes of that. I suspect we're going to get 7 weeks of very average, below average, mundane build-up between the two of them. A lot of stare downs, a lot of poses, and then we get the match, and it'll be fine, and whoever wins, and then we move on. So I ain't going to lie and say, oh, I'm excited for the build-up and the story that's going to be developed. I have no trust or faith whatsoever in these people to create a compelling story between these two heading into WrestleMania. I just don't. These past several weeks of WWE television has killed any thoughts I have of there being any creativity heading into the road to WrestleMania this year. So we can just dismiss that. I'd love to be proven wrong, but so far it doesn't look like I will be. So you can quibble about the build-up, but the match itself, on paper, on a marquee, is a big match for WrestleMania. And that's how things are as far as the Chamber is concerned. As for the other two singles matches on this show, both of them fell into a similar category, where both matches started off very slow and, to me, very, very boring. But then they started to build up more and more, and it got a little bit more interesting. The first of those two, the Women's Intercontinental Championship match with Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. AJ's first singles match in well over a decade here against Becky for this championship. The match itself, I mean, they were telling a story. I understood the story. I just wasn't overly interested in this story. But things did start to get a little more interesting when referee Jessica Carr started to play a role here. We got a ref bump. She got taken out. There was an exposed turnbuckle. So all of these factors started to play into the match. Eventually, Jessica came to. She woke back up. She prevented Becky from intentionally ramming AJ Lee into the exposed turnbuckle. So that's the big key factor here. Becky was going to intentionally ram AJ into the exposed turnbuckle, and Jessica Carr stopped her from doing it. But then a little bit later on, as the two of them are mixing it up, Becky unintentionally rams herself into the exposed turnbuckle. She was charging at AJ. AJ sidestepped her, and Becky herself ran into the exposed turnbuckle. AJ didn't force her into it. It was Becky's own doing. And this led to AJ locking her in the Black Widow, which really, I love AJ Lee, but that move does not look good right now. Either way, she locked it in, Becky tapped out, and AJ Lee is the new Women's Intercontinental Champion. Like I said, the match itself started off very slow, but it built up into something a little bit fun. The fans got more into it. When Jessica was knocked out, Becky tapped out, and the fans reacted huge to it. But of course, it was just, a dusty finish there. Where do I see this leading to WrestleMania? One of two things. Either a straight-up rematch where Becky gets the championship back because AJ Lee is a part-timer and we don't need to see a part-timer hold on to that championship for too long. So either that or AJ goes off, defends that championship against someone else or a multitude of women in some kind of multi-person match against people like Lyra and Bayley and Roxanne Perez, something like that. Meanwhile, Becky gets to be in a singles match against Jessica Carr, because this stuff between the two of them has been going on for months. They've been playing this stuff out. They kind of got away from it for a little bit, but in the background, it's always been there. And It's not the craziest idea in the world that if they wanted to really pay this story off, we could get a singles match between Becky Lynch and Jessica Carr at WrestleMania. Some might look at that as a step down, something below Becky, but again, this is a story that has played out for a while. And maybe that's a match they would do on TV or on one of the PLEs after WrestleMania. Similar to how last year they did Gunther versus Pat McAfee. Maybe this is a backlash match. But I wouldn't be surprised if they went in that direction. I think the ultimate direction is going to be AJ and Becky one-on-one, but after seeing it, I really don't have an appetite to see it again. I don't have a strong desire to see it again, and would probably prefer to see AJ mix it up with somebody else. AJ's been back in the company since September, and while her appearances have been brief, the only person she's really been mixing it up with this entire time has been Becky Lynch. And I gotta be honest with you, with these large gaps in between their beef, I don't really have a hunger to see this feud continue much longer. So if they do head to WrestleMania, hopefully they can end it there and squash this thing between the two of them once and for all. But if they wanted to head in a completely different direction and do something with AJ and somebody else and pay off this other story that Becky has been having with Jessica Carr, the referee, yeah, do it. I'm all in favor of it. Now, as for the men, the World Heavyweight Championship, CM Punk versus Finn Balor. Punk, the hometown boy in Chicago. He had a Michael Jordan Bulls-esque intro for him. Big thing here. Then the bell rings and the crowd goes mild. They really weren't into it. Punk and Balor, they had a really fun TV match in Ireland all those weeks ago. Here, it really wasn't all that great. Much like the women's match, this one started off really slow and boring, and then it built up into something above average. It really wasn't like, wow, it turned out to be a really great match. No, not really. Part of that was the crowd reaction, but part of it was also, and I think also plays in parts of the crowd reaction, not a single person, no matter how hard they tried, no matter how hard commentary tried, no one, not a single person bought into the idea of Finn Balor winning this match and winning the World Heavyweight Championship. No one. Punk versus Roman was already made official. They already announced it. That is the main event of WrestleMania this year. That is the match that this year's WrestleMania is built around. There was no way they were going to change anything here. If they did, it would be a shocker, but no one believed it. So they worked hard, and they tried to put in some near falls here and there, but there was never a point in this match where anyone, myself included, believed that Balor had a shot in hell of winning this championship. And he didn't. Punk hit a GTS. The finish also came out of nowhere too. It was very flat. It was just very matter of fact. There was nothing really building up to it. It just kind of happened. There was exchanges and stuff, but it was just GTS 1, 2, 3, Punk wins, and that's it. And then after the match, he shook hands with Balor. That happened before, and Balor turned on him, so Punk is very trusting, probably to his detriment. And then afterwards, when Balor left, AJ Lee came out, and the two of them were in the ring together celebrating with their championships, which, that's a cool moment for the two of them. But yeah, so all roads lead to Punk and Roman. So we'll see, what happens next with the two of them. They had a great back and forth on the mic after the Rumble. We'll see over these next several weeks where Roman's going to be on TV a little more regularly. He's going to be on the show this upcoming Monday, in fact. So we'll see if things can crank up between the two of them. And then another big aspect of this show was building up to what is inside the box. This giant crate that arrived in the parking lot on Raw for Adam Pearce to sign off on. Then he shipped it over to SmackDown to Nick Aldis. And then ultimately it led to this show here. And it's up on the stage. Pearce and Aldis are both there. They're prying it open. They get it open, and inside is a coffin. And the two of them just disappear. Then the coffin opens up, and out comes all these women who are covered in face paint, and this music is playing in the background. This zany, wacky music for Danhausen. And out comes Danhausen with his cape, with his face paint on. This music's playing, talking about putting a curse on you. He walks out. He circles the ring. He gives Michael Cole a jar of teeth. He gets in the ring. The ladies are dancing, and the music stops, and the crowd boos. And then they cut to black. They're still booing. And then they turn the lights back on. Everyone's gone, and the crowd is deathly silent. This went over like a fart in church. This was not the audience for this one here. Now, this is a hardcore WWE audience, I have to imagine. They don't know who the hell Danhausen is. A lot of people online who only watch WWE, they don't know who Danhausen is. They don't watch AEW. They don't watch the Indies. They don't know who Danhausen is. I know who Danhausen is. In fact, when it came time to think about who is the one who's going to come out of this box on this show, Danhausen was a name that came to mind. Initially, it was Chris Jericho, but then we discovered news about Jericho and his contract status with AEW. Completely ruled him out. And then the idea of Danhausen came up, and then within the past couple of days, his name vanished from the AEW roster page. And lo and behold, he's the one who came out of the box, and he's here. Now, for Danhausen himself, good for him. This is a dude, he's a good dude. At least, all appearances indicate he's a very good dude, very humble. He's worked very hard with this gimmick. He's gotten it over on the Indies, in Ring of Honor, in AEW. For a while there, he was super popular on the show. And those last couple of years with him in AEW, a lot of personal stuff that he has been going through, and then his whole contractual status with the company, it's been very hellacious for him. So to see him, after going through all this stuff over the past couple of years and just knowing his character and who he is as a person, seeing him make it to WWE and get to debut on a big show like this ahead of WrestleMania and all that kind of stuff, that's a cool moment for him. With all that said and pushed to the side, this sucked. This was not good. This was very bad. And it was very embarrassing, man. This is his first appearance on WWE television. A lot of people don't know who he is. They build up this whole mystery thing, and this is how they reveal it. Again, I figured it was going to be Danhausen, and even I was still disappointed. I felt that disappointment from the crowd. It probably would have been different if they did know who he was, and they went crazy for him, and they popped for the teeth and all that kind of stuff. But clearly this crowd did not know who he was, or just did not care. And that'll be very interesting to see going forward if that's gonna play a role and impact his position on the show. Honestly, I thought if Danhausen ever made it to WWE, the smart move would be to put him in NXT. I feel like him and his gimmick would get over super well in NXT first, or even in AAA. In fact, this whole reaction here reminded me a lot of the AAA guys making appearances in the men's Royal Rumble match last month. The only difference is, at least here, the fans reacted and booed. At the Rumble, they made no noise whatsoever when Mr. Iguana and La Parka came out. So, this is going to be an uphill battle. If they want to feature Danhausen on TV as a character, I have no idea what this guy is going to do on WWE television. Maybe the reaction on this show is going to wake them up, and they'll send him over to NXT, send him to Shawn Michaels, and he'll get him over, trust me. In front of that crowd at the PC, that will get over probably way more and way better than it does right now. But that remains to be seen. And segments like that and a lot of the matches on this show adds to the overall meh reaction I have for this show and the meh reaction I have on the road to WrestleMania. And I talked about the idea of a four-way earlier with the WWE Championship with Cody and all them. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that. They look at that like, well, what's the point of the chamber? What's the point of Randy winning? the chamber if it's just going to turn into a multi-man match anyway? What was the point of all that? I get it. But that's what WWE put themselves in. They put themselves in that position. They decided to rightfully put the championship on Drew McIntyre. But in doing so, they decided to force Cody to stay within the mix and tease the idea of doing Cody and Drew one-on-one again. And no one wants to see Cody and Drew. Large majority of people do not want to see Cody and Drew one-on-one again, let alone in the main event of one of the nights at WrestleMania. So they had no other choice. They had to make it a multi-man match. I was fine with keeping it a triple threat with just Jacob Fatu to give him a spot at WrestleMania. But Randy, you got to have a spot for him. Randy's one of your big stars too. And it makes sense for him to be involved in here, and thus you get a four-way. And plus, like I said before, Punk and Roman, that is the main event. You know, you have main events for each night, but the big match at WrestleMania this year for night 2 is one-on-one with Punk and Roman. And with that, you can sacrifice having a multi-man match on night 1. I wouldn't go crazy. I wouldn't add another 1 or 2 or 3 people to it. I wouldn't throw in any kind of crazy gimmicks. Just keep it a fatal 4-way. Drew, Cody, Jacob, Randy. That's it. That's your story. Let it play out with those 4. That's it. But, you know, it is what it is. And I'm going to try to stay as optimistic as I can. You know, the chamber is now over and done with. We can start building up to WrestleMania. I hope things on TV get better. But it's hard. These shows are not good. And, you know, it's subjective. I know some very hardcore, loyal WWE fans will look at these shows and think they're great. But I don't. And I know a lot of other people don't. You know, I see the reactions online. I hear the lack of reactions in these live crowds. It's not great. So they really got to step it up. They have a lot of big shows. They have some big stars on the shows heading into Mania. Consistently on the shows. Roman, Brock Lesnar, hopefully AJ Lee. You know, you got some people. Let's start building some intrigue for WrestleMania. A WrestleMania that so far is not really selling all that well ticket-wise. Maybe they got a little too greedy. Had they been going to New Orleans like originally announced last year, before they switched it to Vegas when they got so money hungry and thirsty over how much money they made, wouldn't be in this position. But the lack of interest in going to the show, these insanely high ticket prices, and the fact that the shows right now building up to WrestleMania are currently sucking are all contributing factors to why ticket sales are as low as they look like right now. As we get closer to the show, maybe that'll be different. Maybe as the card shapes itself out and the stories start playing out a little bit more, things will start to look a little bit better. But for right now, I can only judge what we've gotten so far. And what we've gotten so far has been ass. So it can only improve from here. And that's all I got to say. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you see and like what you hear, you know what to do. I'm DerekJ Speaks. Check you later.